Welcome into another edition of Who's Number One. I'm Trey Wingo. Maybe it was once in a blue moon. Maybe it was the high watermark in a glittering career full of them. Maybe it was a momentary alignment of the planets when the moon was in the 7th house and Jupiter was aligned with Mars. Whatever the cause, the result was one for the books, both the record book and the history books. We're talking the greatest single-season performances of all time, many of which are presumed to be beyond duplication or cloning. Here, ESPN Classic's Top 20.
2020.
Along the backstretch, it's still Citation, pounding ahead of the rest of the thoroughbred.
When somebody says he might have been the greatest horse that ever lived, they have a legitimate argument. He might have been the greatest horse that ever lived. 19 for 20, it speaks for itself.
2020.
In 1948, a game little 3-year-old speedball named Citation went to the post 20 times. He finished first 19 times, second the other. Only 5 days after that defeat, he avenged it. He was so fearsome that the Kentucky Derby barred place and show betting. He would be the last Triple Crown winner for 25 years.
Arcaro rode him just like he's driving a Cadillac. He'd just push on the gas, then he'd let up, he'd push on the gas, let up, and when he pushed on the final push, he'd run back Old Town like he broke his leg.
In Citation's saddle is Eddie Arcaro, riding for his 4th Kentucky Derby victory.
He was not the kind of a horse who was going to win off by, 4 dozen lengths. But when he turned for home and he had a beat on the wire, if you were in trouble.
Into the home stretch, Eddie Arcaro lets Citation loose. Gets the run for the Black-Eyed Susan, and all set to run away with the Triple Crown. Colossal Citation.
Citation was the first great horse to be on television.
Citation was the Muhammad Ali at the top of his boxing game.
Citation, Horse of the Year.
Citation's Triple Crown was as easy as there's ever been, probably the easiest Triple Crown there's ever been.
1983 was the greatest year for arguably the greatest female tennis player ever.
19.
In 1983, Martina Navratilova was practically perfect. She went 86-1, but that lone loss in 17 tournaments came with a high price. It cost her the French Open and the Grand Slam. She turned out to be just as overpowering as a partner, winning 3 Grand Slam doubles titles with Pam Shriver.
We just became this very intimidating tandem that people, when they walked out on the court, they weren't wondering whether or not they would win. They were wondering whether or not they would win games.
In order to be the best tennis player you can be, everything else is to suffer. And I wanted to be the best of all time.
She beat a full field all the time. And it's probably one of the great, underrated, underappreciated seasons individually in sports history.
18.
You could take someone to their very first hockey game, someone who had never seen a game before, and after about 5 minutes, they would go, "Who's that number 4? Did you just see what he did?"
A backhander scores off the post.
18. In the 1969-70 season, Bobby Orr refined the concept of the offensive defenseman, disdaining the conventional stay-at-home style. He went on the attack and became the first blue liner to lead the league in scoring with 120 points. He led Boston to the Stanley Cup and remains the only player to take the Hart, Ross, Norris, and Smythe Awards in the same year.
Here's Orr.
That 1969-70 season, Bobby Orr really changed the view many people had of defensemen.
Carried the puck, made things happen, 30-some-odd goals, and of course the Bruins then win the cup. Bobby Orr changed hockey.
Defensemen never rushed the puck past center. Defensemen never went into the opposition end. They always stayed in their point, and they played defense.
He was really a guy who could take the puck from his own end and go through the whole team and score on the opposition.
He scores for a hat-trick, Bobby Orr!
You didn't think of Bobby Orr as a defenseman. You just thought of him as the most dangerous guy on the ice, with and without the puck.
17.
Bill Russell's success at San Francisco, back-to-back NCAA championships, then the Olympic championship, shows you that he is the greatest winner the game of basketball has ever seen, and that's saying something.
17.
In the 1955-56 season, Bill Russell once again was a 20-20 man in leading San Francisco to its second straight NCAA championship. The spidery left-handed center averaged 21 points and 21 rebounds as the Dons ran up a 29-0 record. For an encore, Russell led the U.S. to an Olympic gold medal.
Russell won 2 national championships, and Russell won the Olympics in 1956. He was just a great player.
He could get into your mind. You try to say to yourself, don't worry about Russell. You know, it's kind of impossible.
Russell won. He was the epitome of a winner. Never lost in 56.
Irvin Johnson was an unbelievable winner. Michael Jordan was a winner. There are other guys who have won where they've been, but nobody did it quite the way Bill Russell did.
16.
To this day, you hear contemporary players talking about Rod Laver as still being the model for what it was to win.
16.
In 1969, Rod Laver, a gritty, red-headed, left-handed Australian who seemed to will his opponents into defeat, became the first player to win the Grand Slam of tennis twice. The first time was as an amateur in 1962. Then as a pro 7 years later, Rocket Rod not only swept the Big Four, but took 17 of 32 tournaments in all.
It wasn't just the amateurs, it wasn't just the rich guys. Now the floodgates have opened, and now you're seeing the best tennis you can find on earth. And he's beating the best tennis players on earth.
When people ask me who is the greatest, I say Rod Laver, because I don't think you can beat 2 Grand Slams, 7 years apart, 1962 and 1969, and all he did.
As my career developed, I came along just purely because I loved the sport as a youngster. Therefore, the desire kept going with me.
15.
It's Richard Petty by a foot.
The 67 season for Richard Petty was just an outstanding performance all year long.
You know, it must have been very frustrating that year for everybody else to go to the racetrack. When he showed up, everybody else was like, well, we'll do the best we can, but the king's here.
15.
It wasn't for nothing that Richard Petty was known as the king, and in 1967 he ruled impressively, leaving the field a disappearing dot in his rearview mirror. He took the starter's flag in 49 races and the checkered flag in 27. With graciousness and accessibility, he captured the stock car racing public.
The fact that a tire didn't fall off, a bolt didn't break, is just incomprehensible.
They were racing consecutive nights. They'd be racing on different racetracks, dirt, asphalt. It was much more difficult, I think, than people realized for him to put that string together.
He was on top of his game in 1967. He won 27 races that year. That's pretty strong. Now the Nextel Cup season consists of 36 races. Can you imagine anyone winning 18 of them? Don't think so.
Secretariat did it again today. He won the Preakness at Pimlico, and he's now 2/3 of the way toward the Triple Crown.
It's not like some movie.
And they're off.
Except it was real.
In 1973, his copper coat glistening in the sun, Secretariat ran like a red blur. Ran his way to the Triple Crown, ran his way into America's hearts. In a dazzling display of dominance, he was the first horse to break 2 minutes in the Kentucky Derby, and at the Belmont, he crushed the field by 31 lengths. Big Red won 9 of 12 races that year and then was retired.
This was something that most Americans had finally concluded will never happen again. No one will ever win the Triple Crown again.
For the turn at Secretariat, it looks like he's opening. The lead is increasing.
He just felt like running. That was the day he felt terrific.
Ron Turcotte, he let him run. Come on. You've done the Derby. You've done the Preakness. Come on. Let's see how he goes all out. How good can this guy go?
Secretariat by 12. Secretariat by 14 lengths on the turn.
Finally, after I turned for home, my curiosity got the best of me. I had to turn around. When I look at it, I scare myself.
Secretariat, he is going to be the Triple Crown winner.
31 lengths. I mean, think of what that. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's like they were racing on two different racetracks.
Manning buying time. Throwing, finding the open man. It's Harrison for the touchdown.
Peyton started strong, throwing a couple 3 touchdown passes every game. I mean, this guy was on track for a great year.
13.
In 2004, Peyton Manning was more than just a passing fancy. 49 of his spirals ended up in the end zone, breaking by 1 the Dan Marino record many thought to be untouchable. The Colts quarterback completed 2/3 of his throws for more than 4,500 yards. He was intercepted only 10 times.
Many people thought that Peyton Manning had it in him, but it really took the 2004 season to prove what a great quarterback he was. The potential was there, and all of a sudden the potential was realized.
Manning, this is off the charts. Confidence is a big key. And throwing the ball with confidence and making decisions with confidence, and that's how I've been able to play.
What a job by Peyton Manning. This is amazing.
To watch Peyton Manning operate that offense, you knew you were watching history, and you just sat back and enjoyed every moment of it.
Peyton really wants to be the best. He wants to throw more touchdowns. He measures everything against perfection, and that's what drives him to be perfect.
12.
Snowy day in shade, and he looked like the only one that could stand up. The rest of everybody was slipping and sliding and falling all over the place. Snowflakes were falling, and he was able to turn and run. It was marvelous.
And now it's for the 2000, boys. O.J. running left. O.J. 5 more.
12.
In 1973, 22 years before he would be acquitted of double murder, O.J. Simpson became the first player in NFL history to run over 2,000 yards, doing so when the season was just 14 games. Conveyed by a Buffalo Bills offensive line known as the Electric Company, the Juice piled up 2,003 yards, including exactly 200 in the final game.
That offensive line called them the Electric Company because they turned on the juice.
At this moment, fully realize what it has been our great privilege to watch O.J. Simpson run for 2,000 yards in one season.
O.J. was a tremendous athlete. This man was a great sprinter. This man was one of the greatest running backs that ever lived.
Simpson was going to get the ball 25, 30 times a game. You knew it if you're the defense, and you still couldn't stop it.
Football doesn't have numbers. I mean, what's the greatest number in football? There's probably only one. 2,000 yards rushing.
There was very few as electric and as explosive as O.J. Simpson.
11.
You hear a story once a week about what Pete did here. And they're all true.
11.
In the 1969-70 season, Pistol Pete Maravich of LSU was smoking. The 6'5 senior guard with the floppy hairdo and droopy socks made every night seem like a game of horse, and he'd spot you the H, the O, the R, and the S. He averaged an astonishing 44.5 points per game. Oh, by the way, this was all before the three-point shot.
All you have to do is score 15 three-pointers every game you play your entire college career, and you'll break Pistol's record. No one's ever going to do it.
You could not really prepare for him because you didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't know what he was going to do.
and you were scared to take your eye off of him because something might happen.
Set NCAA record for scoring. Shot from everywhere. The corners, outside, inside. He shot from everywhere. For 2 years running, nobody in the country could match him.
He was so far ahead of his time. I mean, you hear that all the time, but he was so far ahead of his time. He was doing stuff back then that a lot of guys don't even think about doing right now.
10.
Gibson's 68 season is arguably the best season by any pitcher in baseball history.
That was the apex of his career. That was the peak. I mean, that's when he was the most dominating.
10.
In 1968, Bob Gibson was the miser on the mound, yielding runs with a belligerent reluctance. His ERA was an absurd 1.12. It included 13 shutouts and one stretch of 92 innings in which he permitted only 2 runs. In leading the Cardinals to the pennant, he completed 28 of 34 starts while compiling a 22-9 record.
He made 34 starts, 28 complete games, 13 shutouts, and allowed 38 earned runs.
I pitched 300 innings. I think there's somebody who will have an earned run average lower than 1.12, but I doubt that they'll pitch 300 innings.
Wow. You know, first time I saw him, I struck out 3 times, and I didn't have a great deal of success against him the rest of my career.
You hear that line about Koufax used to take the mound and he was unhittable. Nolan Ryan was unhittable. Gibson was unhittable for a season.
Here's the big O, Oscar Robertson, driving for a layup.
You knew where he was going to go. You knew exactly what he was going to do, but you couldn't stop him. That's greatness.
9.
In the 1961-62 NBA season, Oscar Robertson of Cincinnati posted a triple-double. Not for one game, for the entire season. These were the Big O's unprecedented numbers. 30.8 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 11.4 assists. At 6'5", he played the point, scored like a forward, and rebounded like a center.
When you think about Magic, well, look, he had a triple-double tonight. Hold on now. That's nice. Oscar did it for a season.
The funny part about Oscar is back then, nobody really appreciated what a triple-double was.
He averaged a triple-double for a whole season. I could never compare to that.
Oscar Robertson from the corner. Terrific.
He didn't try to beat you with quickness. He just overwhelmed you, just methodically back you where he wanted to take you and just jump right over you.
The way I played, because it's for the cell, he's not doing anything. He look at the score, look at the assist, look at the rebound.
People used to say, well, all he does is back his man in and score. Is that right? That's a shame. That's all you have to do is back him in and score. Why didn't everybody else do that?
A triple-double should be named a triple Oscar.
Marino, deep wrap, throwing deep upfield down the near side, man open, touchdown!
By the '84 season, Dan Marino wasn't a second-year player. He was like a 10th-year player.
In 1984, Dan Marino went where no quarterback had gone before. His 5,084 passing yards remains the NFL record, and his 48 touchdown passes shattered the old mark by a dozen as the Dolphins went 14-2 and advanced to the Super Bowl.
1984 was a magic year. Dan could do no wrong. He would have a tremendous game, and everybody would say, wow, he could never top this, and the next Sunday he topped it.
Here's Marino running to his right, throws in the end zone, caught for a touchdown.
We scored a lot of points that year, and Dan broke all of the records, 48 touchdown passes.
The touchdown passes are something special for me. And touchdown passes, you know, it relates to points for your team, helps your team win, so that's something I'm very proud of.
Marino goes deep. Touchdown!
Some of the DBs, you say, well, we could have done that. I said, could have. If you could have shut us down, then you all would have.
Every pass was ended up in the end zone with somebody celebrating. There was just art and grace that we had never seen before at that level.
7, 7, 7, 7.
There it is, as grand as it gets.
What a way to cap it off.
What Tiger Woods did in 2000 was breathtaking. He's a force of nature.
7, 7.
In 2000, a player named Eldrick owned golf, lock, stock, and wedge. Tiger Woods joined Ben Hogan as the only ones to win 3 pro majors in the same year. Woods also became the 5th player and youngest at 24 to complete a career Grand Slam. His 15-stroke margin of victory in the U.S. Open was the largest ever in any major.
What he did at the U.S. Open was incredible. Well, I've never witnessed anything like that. I mean, U.S. Opens, man, you're kidding, you win by 1, maybe you win by 2. 15?
To blow away the best players in the world at Pebble Beach by 15 shots, to blow away the Masters field, is crazy.
To win 4 consecutive majors is such a Herculean accomplishment. I will never say he can't do anything again, not after Pebble Beach.
The brand of golf Tiger Woods played in 2000 is the best golf we've ever seen on this planet.
Does it get any better than this, guys?
The scary thing is that it could happen again, but only on a greater scale.
6.
When God created Barry Sanders, even he didn't know what he made.
Nobody ran like Barry Sanders ran.
6.
Another stop-start run by Barry Sanders. He is putting on a show.
6.
In 1988, trying to run down Barry Sanders was like trying to catch your shadow. In 11 regular season games at Oklahoma State, he set NCAA records by rushing for more than 2,600 yards and scoring 39 touchdowns. 4 times he ran for over 300 yards in a game. Hey, one guess who won the Heisman that year?
Come 88, and he just goes off. I can remember thinking, this guy is incredible.
Barry up to the races, 30, 20, 15, 10, they'll never get it. Touchdown! He's done it again! Killer or what?
That was as good an individual season as any college football player ever had.
The 1988 winner of the Heisman Award is Barry Sanders of Oklahoma State University.
You think about a 200-yard game for running back is outstanding. He had 4 300-yard games.
He was a ballerina on the football field. This guy had moves on top of moves.
To gain over 2,600 yards in a college football season with not a great team, to be the entire focal point of that team, I don't think people realize how strong Barry Sanders was.
5, 5, 5.
When I was young, one of my dreams was to be a Jones, to win both Opens and both Amateurs.
In 1930, Bobby Jones did what no golfer managed before or since. He won both the American and British Amateurs and Opens, a feat grandly and forevermore known as the Grand Slam. Then, perhaps sensing that winning those 4 in the same year a second time was beyond even his reach, he retired at 28 and set about creating this little golf tournament we now call the Masters.
To come out as an amateur, working at another living, playing against the best that professional golf could offer, and to whip each one of them on every single occasion, that's pretty special.
It's really a great treat to play before a gallery that understands golf and appreciates the difficulties under which the players labor. Thank you very much.
That's something to put on your CV. You know, I won the American Amateur, I won the British Amateur.
To win tournaments of that magnitude within the space of 1 year is so rare because golfers cannot ever stay on their game for long periods of time.
The magic of 1930 and Bobby Jones, I think, is told in the inability of any golfer since to be able to put together a Grand Slam.
4.
It's a long ball, a very long ball. It's in for a home run. His 21st home run of the season.
In 1941, in what was a terrific season for baseball, Ted Williams had one of the greatest seasons of the century.
That 406 mark will stand forever. I don't think anybody's going to do that anytime soon.
4.
In 1941, Ted Williams and his keen eye, extraordinary patience, and sweet stroke conspired to do what no major league hitter has done since: get to 400. The Red Sox slugger, who claimed to be able to see the stitches on pitches, batted .406 with 37 homers and 120 RBI. A judiciously selective hitter, he walked 147 times.
A guy batting 500 times and getting 200 hits. I can't believe that could happen in the big leagues.
But all eyes are on this man, Ted Williams, gunning for a 400 season.
Here's a guy who was at 399 point, whatever it was, and you could have rounded it up and gotten to 400, but that wouldn't have been the way Ted Williams would have wanted to do it.
And Williams said, listen, I'm not going to hit 400 sitting in a dugout.
So now I'm in the plate. And Frankie Hayes, the catcher, said, Mr. Mack said we're going to pitch to you today.
And Ted has himself a double. Ted finishes the doubleheader 6 for 8, batting .406.
For him to go 6 for 8 on the final day of the season really contributes to this sort of John Wayne type image he has.
And they say the toughest thing in the sport to do is to take a round bat and hit a round ball squarely. Ted Williams did that better than anyone who ever played the game.
3.
Here's Gretzky. Takes the shot, he scores! Gretzky has the hat trick.
52 goals, 163 assists. That tells you he was involved in virtually every single goal the Oilers scored that year.
He scored!
Everything flowed through number 99.
3.
In the 85-86 season, Wayne Gretzky made the nickname the Great One seem like an understatement. His 215 points are a record, as are his 163 assists, which his Edmonton Oilers line mates described as, quote, passes from God, end quote. Though unimposing physically, he revolutionized the way the game was played by setting up behind the opponent's net in no man's land.
Think of the total, 80 games, 163 assists. That means before the game begins, the opponent has to realize that the guy that you're playing against is going to be responsible for 2 goals. So right off the bat, you're 2 down.
Carlisle loses it. Gretzky scores as he took the puck and walked out from behind the net.
There's a lot of guys that I've played with that have been good players, and they would get in a game where they'd score 2 or 3 points, and they'd almost shut it down. And Wayne was just the opposite. If he got 2 or 3, he wanted 4, he wanted 5, he wanted 6.
Being a winner is ultimately being a team player, being unselfish, pushing your teammates to go higher heights.
Wayne, on a mission at that time in his prime, could pretty much do whatever he wanted.
Gretzky moving in. The shot. He scores!
That game after game after game. You know, you hear the old line, well, we weren't up today, or, you know, I didn't have it. But this guy had it all the time.
Two.
Big Will Kennigan makes the bucket.
He had a season for the ages. And statistically, there will be no better basketball player than Wilt Chamberlain.
In the 1961-62 season, Wilt Chamberlain posted numbers that looked more uncatchable each year. The Philadelphia Warriors center averaged 50 points. He gave us a foreshadowing of what was to come with games of 78 and 73 points, then crowned that all with that 100-point night against the Knicks. And oh yes, he did average 26 rebounds.
We knew from Wilt's intensity that something very, very big was happening. No matter where the ball went, Wilt got it. They either fouled him or he scored.
Chamberlain at 75 with 10 minutes to go.
Then our announcer announced some crazy number, and Wilt's eyes lit up.
50 points, you're averaging 50. Think about it. Every time you lace him up and go out on the court, the guy that's defending you that night has got to figure out, how do I keep him from scoring 50?
In other words, if he had a 25-point night, he had to have a 75-point night to even it off.
Can you imagine someone having a whole season averaging 50 points a game, and when you score 40 or 45 points, you've had a bad game? It's incredible.
Welcome back to Who's Number One and the 20 greatest single-season performances of all time. Let's recap the list.
20.
Citation, 1948.
19.
Martina Navratilova, 1983.
18.
Bobby Orr, 1969-70.
17.
Bill Russell, 1955-56.
16.
Rod Laver, 1969.
15.
Richard Petty, 1967.
14.
Secretariat, 1973.
13.
Peyton Manning, 2004.
12.
O.J. Simpson, 1973.
11.
Pete Maravich, 1969-70.
10.
Bob Gibson, 1968.
9.
Oscar Robertson, 1961-62.
8.
Dan Marino, 1984.
7.
Tiger Woods, 2000.
6.
Barry Sanders, 1988.
5.
Bobby Jones, 1930.
4.
Ted Williams, 1941.
3.
Wayne Gretzky, 1985-86.
2.
Wilt Chamberlain, 1961-1962. They bring you to your feet and make you shout, yeah! But one performance was a virtuoso, one that towered over all the others. And here it is.
1.
When the topic comes up, who is the greatest baseball player ever, the conversation ends with 2 words, 8 letters, Babe Ruth. All you have to do is look at 1921.
In 1921, George Herman Ruth cranked out a season that was gargantuan even by his imposing standards. In a matchless combination of power and productivity, Babe hit .378, belted 59 homers, scored 177 runs, and drove in 171. He also led the league in slugging percentage, walks, on-base percentage, and extra base hits.
Babe Ruth's 1921 season is without a doubt the greatest single baseball season ever, probably the greatest sports season ever.
378, 59 home runs, 171 RBIs. Can you imagine somebody having those kind of numbers today?
He was so far ahead of everybody else in baseball that year, and his total bases were far ahead. His home runs were far ahead. Everything. He was like the old Empire State Building rising up above 6-story buildings.
You know, you talk about guys in the 90s and the 80s, you know, on steroids. And Babe Ruth's on hot dogs, and he's obliterating records that have stood since the beginning of the game.
There were players back in those days that would hit 5, 6 homers. They'd never seen anything like the Babe.
Babe Ruth came along, and people weren't wondering, who is this? They were wondering, what is this?
There was something different about that man. The minute he walked in the ballpark, people stood up. Oh, there's the Babe. There's the Babe.
Hello, Babe. How do you feel?
Fine, Sonny. How's yourself?
All right. Well,
Hope you hit a lot of home runs.
Well, I won't predict anything, but I'll sure do my best. I hope all you boys will be out there watching it.
We look at Babe Ruth as a career more than we do as a single season. But when you focus on that single season, and when you see what he did individually, you realize his greatness.
He paced the entire major leagues in 1921 and went on to better numbers in some of those categories, but never put it together like that.
This was a guy who transcended the game, transcended the sport. He is the gold standard by which all others are compared.
He's the Bambino, baby. There's no year better than that.
So ESPN Classic has rewound the memory bank and selected the best and the brightest of some truly epic performances. Not an easy thing to do. So how did the panel do? Well, that's for our resident second guessers to decide. Gentlemen, what do you have?
What do we got, Joe?
I'll tell you what, this is an interesting list because you have so many great athletes in competition for this and so many great accomplishments. But the bottom line is this. To me, there are a couple of things that I totally disagree with.
Well, I agree with number one.
I agree with number one.
I mean, Babe Ruth reinvented the game. You can see his DNA in every home run hitter today because of that 59 homers.
And he didn't use steroids.
Didn't matter. I'll tell you what Babe Ruth did that nobody else knew about, and he did it. He batted against a background of white shirts because in those days there were no such things as blue shirts. They sat in the center field stands. He had to pick the ball out coming in.
Interesting.
Brilliant that he could do that. And he basically changed the game because they lose the World Series that year, 21, to the Giants, who were still playing scientific baseball.
I tell you what, Wilt Chamberlain, number two, any person could average 50 points a game. Look today, you don't see very many athletes getting 50 points in a game, period, in a season.
I got a different two, and I take issue with this list. Okay. Sammy Ball, 1943, Washington Redskins.
Not even in the 20.
Yeah, but he's too early, don't you understand? These people didn't understand this. They're 18 years old to put this together.
But they had citations.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that because he's not an athlete. According to the dictionary, an athlete is a person who. Tell me citations, a person who. If they didn't have a saddle on him, he'd be on the infield eating grass, for crying out loud.
Might have had him for dinner.
Yes, but I've got to tell you, Sammy Ball, 1943, leads the NFL in passing, in punting, 51.3, and in interceptions with 11.
It's a hell of a trifecta, you're right.
So I've got him number two.
That's
Why is Bobby Jones so far down?
I don't understand that, but here's another one I don't agree with. Oscar Robertson, number 9.
Oh, that's a brilliancy.
Oscar Robertson, to average a triple-double in a season. Again, today, you don't see athletes getting too many triple-doubles in a game. He averages in a season. It's unbelievable. And it was 30 points a game. I mean, the rebounding for a guard.
I've got to ask,
forward.
Why is Williams on this list at 406 in 1941? Yes, he hit it. Yes, it was a brilliant act, and it was only done before him, what, by Cobb 3 times, Harry Heilman, Rogers Hornsby 3 times. Where are they?
Duffy. Yep.
Where are they? I mean,
well, also interesting.
And they didn't even vote him MVP that year.
Well, there you go. That's an interesting. He's not MVP, but yet he's in the top 5.
If they didn't appreciate him then, why are we supposed to appreciate him now?
I guess he's frozen in time. But here's the thing. Another one for you. Sorry. Couldn't help myself. Another one for you.
Nobody could help you.
Secretariat 14, Bobby Orr 18. Bobby Orr revolutionized hockey.
He was
scoring defenseman, brilliant player all around. Secretariat, athlete, you say no. I say definitely no.
And also, I've got to tell you, having horses and voting for them this way as athletes is like voting for a piano as a great musician.
Hey, give Ron Turcotte. Ron Turcotte never gets any credit.
Don't they have jockeys who do this?
Ron Turcotte was brilliant on Secretariat. Does anyone talk about Ron Turcotte?
Well, he didn't have 4 legs. But there are Bobby Orr could skate faster backwards than anybody could skate forward.
And then if you're talking single-season performances, another one. Pete Maravich in college. How dominant was he as a basketball player? I mean, come on. At LSU, he was unreal.
I mean, but so what we've got is somebody's memory that's faulty to begin with, and we say it is to end with the exception of Babe Ruth at number 1 for 1921.
I'll stick with Wilt, too. I'm okay with that.
I still like Sammy Ball.
There you go.
That's it for single-season performances.
Now it's time to see how you, the fan, voted on Sports Nation on ESPN.com for the greatest single-season performance of all time. Number 5, Martina Navratilova. Number 4, Babe Ruth. Number 3, Barry Sanders. Number 2, Wayne Gretzky. Number 1, Wilt Chamberlain.
So that's it for this edition of Who's Number 1. Thanks for joining us for ESPN Classic's ranking of the 20 greatest single-season performances of all time. As always, we will be back to continue our countdown of the teams, the athletes, and the events that have shaped our world of sports. Until then, I'm Trey Wingo. Let the debating begin.